Hello, so in this video we're going to go over mocap editing techniques. I'm going to do a lot of scaling with the clip. The clip was rather short, and lining, locking feet, adjusting channels. You can pause the video for more detail. So here I'm introducing the scale tool. It's the icon that's highlighted up there. Scale tool is really cool because you can add those bars wherever you want just by double clicking, and then you can scale non-uniformly. So I went from 24 up to 43 frames, and I'm just playing it back to see, you know, the speed. It's kind of hard to really see what's going on with the speed when you've got an accelerated video, but I am kind of testing things out. So I kind of got the speed where I wanted it, and now what I'm doing is just I'm sort of aligning the character at the origin. So in order to do that, taking the entire channel and just dragging it with shift to constrain it, either over or up and down, and so I'm just essentially forcing the animation to start at the origin. Also, even rotating the hips around so it's kind of facing more head on. So all that can be done just by grabbing the entire channel and, you know, pushing it up or down, and kind of lining it up with zero. So now what I'm going to do is take the feet and lock them. So just straighten them out, orient them, put them on the ground, and set the keys on them. And so then once those keys are set, at frame 1 you can just blow all the other curves away and then just copy them and put those same curves on the end frame. So now the feet are locked, and you know, if the feet were walking, then you'd have to adjust each step. Here I've just got FK controllers for the arms, and so they're a little more difficult. Plus, this guy's not, you know, is not really a biped, and his arms are a little different than a human. So the only way to really adjust these correctly is I'm just kind of doing some rotations to kind of see what channels I need to move, and then I just go in and select the whole channel and move it up to kind of just get it in the place where I want it to be. Looking at the clavicle and the shoulder control, and just sort of adjusting it, and so it winds up being a global adjustment. Next I'll go in and, you know, grab the lower arms and the hands, and just orient them and rotate them so that they look natural rather. There I'm changing a wireframe color so I can just see that side a little easier to select it. So I'm always doing that by just grabbing channels and kind of moving them globally in order to, you know, keep the motion, but you're just sort of offsetting it. Same thing with the arms. You can change your world to object axes. Most of the controllers you want to be in object mode. Now here what I'm just doing is some more scaling, and I'm also determining that, you know, in certain areas things are just rotating a little bit too quick or maybe too far. Now I've decided on the pose, and so with pose to shelf, that's the actual pose that I'm going to be using. So I'll put that at the beginning and the end. And then I want to save my shelves out, and remember, you save your shelf and take it with you if you're working in more than one location, because the shelf has the pose information. And so I'm going to go through every curve and just see what areas I need to clean up. And you really need to look at every single curve, just find where there's little pops. In that case, I just deleted an entire frame. So blowing away keys it's really a good way to go when you're editing data. So again, I just like that entire keyframe on the neck, just blew it away, and it helps get rid of pops, makes the data a little more smooth. Of course, playing it back looks, you know, kind of silly when it's sped up like this. It's kind of hard to see exactly, you know, what and why I'm doing, but notice I'm just deleting a lot of keyframes. And then, you know, maybe adjusting a few too. Like there I decided to kind of give the little bit more of a turn in the head as the neutral pose. So I overwrote it, put it at the beginning and the end of the animation just to make it a little more interesting. So there what I'm doing is, again, just kind of spreading it out. I thought one part, the head, was maybe turning too fast. So just scaling it, massaging the data, deleting keys. You really have to touch every channel. You have to look at it, fix your pops. And again, the first and the last keys of the frame, but I'll only bake out to the next to the last frame. Now here I'm looking at layers. So what I'm wanting to do is maybe make him stand up a little higher, but I'd have to rebuild the entire curve. So there, if I go to Anim Layers over on the right-hand side and add Selected, so then you get a base layer, and then you get an animation layer. And so that's another full body layer, but what I'm going to do is just make it even an additional layer and just put that on the hips. So I've just added the hips controller to that top layer there. And you have to actually, so you can change the color of a layer, and you have to actually select on it to make it work. So you put in the first key, and then you move it up and you can see where it's kind of ghosted. And so what I'm doing is just putting this layer of the hips going up and down, and it kind of gives him a little bit more character. Remember I said I wanted you guys to exaggerate the motion a little bit, so that's what I'm doing with the hips. Now also you can get in and keyframe the weight, and so I'm doing that there. Thing to understand though is the weight is on a separate channel. If you could look at the left in the channel box, so you can keyframe the weight between 0 and 1, and so you know I can make this change to my hips in the layer, and then I can make changes to that overall layer with how much of a percentage I want going on it. So the key with the layer editor is just make sure that you've actually clicked in the right layer, and it's pretty easy to do. Now I'm making like a head and shoulders layer, and so with the head and shoulders, essentially what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of overlap and follow through. So I'm seeing where I want it to follow through, so again, make sure you click on that layer, put the first key in the first frame. And so I'm just giving the head a little bit more of a, want him to just turn his head quicker, and it just makes it look a little bit better, because that previous animation was just more of just a blend to a, kind of a neutral pose. And there I'm adding overlap and follow through to the shoulders and hands, so that when I play it, it you know, just a little more character. Got that one controller at the base of the neck that allows me to shift the shoulders, including the arms. Here I'm going to add just a little bit of follow through with the tail, just a little bit of bending. And once I've bent it a little bit, As the body goes up, the tails goes down, and vice versa. And then it's good when you do that to take those keys and then just push them forward a couple of frames, and so then the offset is a little more noticeable of the overlap. This layer information is probably a little quick. See, I'm also doing the tail sideways. But the whole key is it's just like a display layer. You select things, or you make a layer, and then it has a base layer, and you can make as many layers as you want, and you can add all of the elements to a layer or just individual elements to the layer. And again, you can also key between 0 and 1 how much you want that layer to be active. It's kind of like opacity in a Photoshop layer. Then you can right click on them and merge them down. Now here, check out the Smart Bake that I selected. So I use Smart Bake when I bake the keys down, and what that did was it made it so that not every single key was baked. Smart Bake is an option in the Bake Simulations tool as well, so the Smart Bake will only put keys where you need them. You can see there that I adjusted the beginning and end pose again, so I just made another version of it, put them at the beginning and end. There, that Smart Bake on the Bake Simulation, really powerful. Over on the right hand side, I deleted keys that I didn't need, that were, I think, in the inputs and the channel, or under shapes. Those elements did not need to be keyed, so I broke the connections. So now I'm using the Easy Bake script, and you know, I was concerned about this rig, you know, maybe it being a broken rig. In other words, I was concerned that it might have, some of the joints might have been children of some of the controllers, so I pulled it all the way out of the hierarchy when I selected the joints and ran it. That wasn't necessary to do. Now for this particular assignment, what I'm doing is I'm having you save the model with just the model and the skeleton, and then getting rid of the controls, just like we're doing here. And so it's sort of a simulation of just putting it in a game engine. So I save that model out, the character with no rig. And then I pull in a clip from, and then I just arrange the clips, idle, action, and idle, and then use match pose, and so that's how I want you to deliver it.